Turns out my mic input was off. Apologies, guys. Apologies. Not a good way to start. Crap. Alright, well, I'm not going to do the whole spiel again. So, let's do it like this. Welcome, everybody, to the open mic. Today, we'll be talking about Old Hammer. The revivification, or revivification. How many Vivies are in revivification? We're going to be talking about that today. And that was recently announced and showcased at Warhammer Fest 2023. People have been super excited about it. A lot of my Old Hammer fans and friends have been talking about it. It's been interesting. I will say two things off the bat up front. The first thing is, if you're going to donate during today's stream, please do so using the link in the description, the Streamlabs link. That way I can get the money more readily. There is actually a more immediate need for some funds on my end right now. I'm a little behind on some payments that are specifically in regards to Warglaive Gothic. They will be covered when I get my paycheck from my day job, but that's not till the end of this week. So for me to get back on track immediately with certain things in regards to it, like the update video for my patrons and for the people supporting the project, that's on hold until I can get that covered until the end of the week. So if you guys want to help me more readily cover that, I'll be upfront with how much that costs, just so you guys don't over donate. If you only want to donate enough to get that on track, that's just $60 because it's the Adobe suite, and Adobe have some like the whole suite for as a package costs about $60 a month. Because God forbid we can just buy software and own it and call it good. That's not how it works no more. Everything's got to have a sub fee connected to it. Yay! having to pay permanently for all that stuff feels great. But anyway, that little gripe aside, if you choose to donate, please do so through Streamlabs. If you do not wish to do just a single donation, but you want to check out and also support the Warglaive Gothic project, which is me developing a tabletop war game, which includes miniature STLs, which there are a few available. There's a set of bases that are available on the Patreon, as well as two variations of the same monster miniature STL. Those are both available right now on the Patreon, and hopefully within the next week, there'll also be access to two more STLs related to Warglaive Gothic, two more units related to the game, that being the Gretch Ghoul and the Gretch Brute. Hopefully I'll have two of those available, and then I'm going to have sub-assembly versions of those available later. I was hoping to have a sub-assembly of the Ghoul ready to go by the end of April, but I was being a little optimistic. So anyway, that spiel aside, and also the other spiel is actually related to the topic, and I want to get into that. I will be upfront with everybody when it comes to Warhammer Fantasy. Outside of Total War Warhammer, I have virtually no experience directly with Warhammer Fantasy. Warhammer Fantasy. I've always been a 40k guy. What got me into tabletop wargaming was 40k. 40k is my baby. That is the game and universe that draw me into this space, and it's pretty much been the one I've enjoyed exclusively. Yeah, Warhammer. That's the one I know and love. Ask me questions about the Primarchs, ask me questions about the broad timeline, ask me questions about who's my favorite character. All these things I can answer in regards to Warhammer 40k because I know it so well. When it comes to Warhammer Fantasy, I am nowhere near as well versed on the lore. And even playing Total War Warhammer has not actually bred in me enough of an interest in Warhammer Fantasy to really seek out the lore. A couple times I've thought about it. I've thought about just while I'm doing other projects, listening to some lore in regards to that stuff. I have to admit, at no point have I really taken the opportunity. Most of the lore I have learned about Warhammer Fantasy, I have learned from having conversations with a good friend of mine named Ball. He is awesome, and he's a Old Hammer fan, and I used to get stories from him all the time, whether it be just about the hobby in general, the space it was like back when he played years and years ago, and some lore tidbits about Warhammer Fantasy I've gotten from him in regards to that. Otherwise, this is not a universe or game I am super familiar with. I guess I could say I'm very much familiar with the aesthetic. I'm very much familiar with the community around it. I definitely know quite a bit of people who still play Warhammer Fantasy, the older editions that still existed until GW ceased its support of Warhammer Fantasy. I have, I myself own a couple Warhammer Fantasy Classic models like this Metal Teclis, which I won't say I've had this forever. This is a recent acquisition. It's the 1991. I don't know if you can make it out on the base there, but this is the 1991 Teclis. At least the base is 1991. I don't know necessarily that this is supposed to be the base he's on. I know he's supposed to be on a square base. That's why I'm still questioning why he came on this. But I got this secondhand from a guy who sold like a set of Warhammer Fantasy. Well, not just Warhammer Fantasy, but Warhammer set of stuff. So yeah, this is Teclis, and at the very least, the base he's on is from 1991. The model itself is metal, so I'm definitely confident it's a metal base. It's a 90s mini from that era, but I just don't know if the base and the mini match in terms of manufacturing. Regardless, that's the spiel I wanted to give, because I don't want anybody coming in here thinking I'm an authority on Warhammer Fantasy. I definitely will proudly say I'm an authority in terms of just simply having more experience than a complete noob. I would say I have a decade under my belt with Warhammer 40k, so I know plenty in regards to that. I will definitely say I'm confident about my knowledge with that. But in regards to fantasy, I'm not as much. So hopefully this conversation will be as much for me to learn about as it is everybody else. But the main thing I want to focus on with today's open mic is getting everyone's feeling about the introduction. Also the general information we have about Warhammer, the old world, and what's going to come with it. And one of the first things I want to bring up, and I'm going to be like reiterating this question to every caller we have it come in, but one of the first things I've gotten is there's a bit of a confusion right now going on with whether there will be a starter box set for Warhammer the Old World. I know that there was a Q&A for Warhammer Fest, and there was a confusing set of answers to some questions that were provided for Warhammer the Old World. Apparently someone was told, will there be like box sets akin to like the Indominus box for 40k, and the answer was no. So a lot of people originally took that to mean there won't be a starter box at all for the Old World, but since then there's been clarification that no, there will be a starter box, it just won't be like the Indominus box, which I'm not sure what that means. As it is, it seems like there's some confusion on that front, so I didn't want to bring that up. I definitely think GW will make a box set. I mean, they're going to capitalize this on best they can. So I have a hard time believing they wouldn't do a box set. But at the same time, when it comes to the overall showcase of the old world, they didn't really have that much to show outside of two models. They had a Tomb King model, which I heard a lot of people from like live streams and stuff I caught of it. A lot of people thought it was going to be Cetra, like a new model for Cetra. But no, it's just a new model for the Tomb Kings as a whole, but it's not Cetra. It's just a Tomb King kind of base model. And there's also a new Bretonian model. So yeah, but that was all we were shown that was new. A lot of the information that we got from like the Q&A and from Warhammer Fest itself was just confirmation of like, okay, so yes, the old world is not separate from fantasy. It's just the revivification of it. It's going to be reviving the compatibility with, apparently, I think it was 8th edition fantasy. Will be 8th edition and on will be compatible with it in terms of like models and stuff. Although apparently the base sizes haven't been decided as well. There's been confusion there. Generally speaking, my take on the whole presentation of Old World in terms of Warhammer Fest felt rushed. It felt like it was added last minute. At least that's my opinion, because of how little they really had to show, and also how confusing their answers were in regards to the information. But at the same time, it could have been too rushed, because they had 2 models worth of sculpts to showcase, which had to have at least taken a couple of weeks. Well, I say that, but that's more based on my own speed with models. I'm thinking like if I was paid like to do 8 hours a day straight work on a model, how fast could I get it done? I could get it done within 2 weeks and make it look pretty damn good. And these models do look good, by the way. I don't want to take away from those, but who knows? These guys are definitely more experienced than I am. This is like their bread and butter career that they are paid to do. They're not doing like a startup indie game like I am. So let's be a bit more optimistic and say they get it done in a week. So yeah, generally, I got the impression that the overall the presentation and the information felt rushed to me. But it could just be that they weren't expecting the questions that they were getting. I find that hard to believe personally, because a lot of the questions that were asked were, well, they were questions you could have predicted. It's like oh, is there going to be a starter box set? I mean, come on, like GW, that's of course going to be like the first question you're asked. So why did we get a confusing answer there? And also, again, like with the base sizes and the compatibility of old models to new models with the new square bases, like are those going to be compatible? And they said we'll hold off on, if you do get new stuff, or you have old stuff you haven't assembled yet, don't just start assembling and putting in assemble and paint the model itself, but don't put it on new bases. We don't know yet. I don't know, all of that felt really off to me. Like, I don't know if everybody else got that, and again, I'm going to throw this question to all the callers. So I'm just about ready to start calls. I'm trying to think of any last bit of information I can recall from the Warhammer Fest presentation. I think that's all I recall catching. Of course, if there's something else you guys recall as I bring in callers, by the way, if there's more you guys recall that I'm not mentioning here, please do so. This is a great hub. I would love to have the community just kind of inform itself about. So I'm going to share the link to the open mic Discord. I shared it 3 times there. Oh, by the way, make sure to leave a like and support the stream and support the open mic podcast. Always like having people come on. So anyway, that's all the information I can recall from the Warhammer Fest Q&A. So let's just open the floor up to open mic. I have 1 caller in waiting. And then from there, I'm going to have people come in, different calls. Yeah, I hope we get some new people in. Hope we get some old people. Yeah, I'm excited to hear. I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. That's for sure. All right. So our first caller is Closing Straw. Closing Straw, welcome to the stream. How you doing? Uh-oh. Are you an Android? What a way to start. Hey, Wolfenbach. You didn't see the QA, I have nothing to add. Well, you can, your opinion and your take about it, like, are you excited about it? Probably, like, things like that I'm going to ask. So I think everyone has something to add on that front. I will warn you guys, if you guys are on Android, Discord to this day still has a glitch with it, where if you're dragged into a different call on Android, it'll block your, it'll basically prevent the actual connection from being, like, you'll connect to the call, but your mic and your output audio will not connect. Okay, so he is on Android, so that is the problem. It's run by furries. Yeah, I don't doubt it. Okay. Okay, so Closing Straw, I'm going to make you a guest. That way you can join the call manually, as opposed to me dragging you in. That's on me. Give him the roll. And disconnect him. Alright, so Closing Straw, make sure to reconnect to the call. And again, there we go. Alright, can you hear me?
No.
I can hear you.
God damn it, I had a thing. I'm going to do the thing. Fuck it.
I heard you. I hear you.
Listen, you pansy. I ate elves. I ate goblins. I ate orcs. I ate umgaks. Not racist, just don't like them.
Okay.
Love me gold. Love me hold. Love me grudges. Simple as.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I take it you're positively excited for Warhammer the Old World.
Oh, very. Like, goddamn. Like, they kind of fucked it very hard with the end times. Just shit the bed sort of thing. But hopefully this will be good.
Hopefully. I mean, I know I'm super excited for Warhammer Fantasy fans, for sure. So, do you... I guess this would be my question. Did you actually play Warhammer Fantasy from back in the day, or are you more of a post Age of Sigmar fan of like the old lore?
I like both Age of Sigmar and Warhammer Fantasy.
Oh, we got a rare one.
Because, yeah, Warhammer Fantasy began with literal shit, but they kind of just pulled themselves out of the mud, cleaned themselves off, and then offered something interesting.
Okay. I will say this: you're a vast minority within that space.
I know.
Most people, at least that I've encountered, I will acknowledge that I haven't interacted with the entirety of the Age of Sigmar community or the people around it, but most of the people I've encountered in the hobby space that were fans of Warhammer Fantasy hate Age of Sigmar with a religious zeal, and most Age of Sigmar fans never played Warhammer Fantasy. Or if they did, they play AOS reluctantly in its place and miss Fantasy.
I understand their reasonings for both sides. However, the latter are fucking grognards, and they just refuse to enjoy change. Like, if something changes, there will be bitching, even if it's for the best.
So do I take from that you think the changes made in AOS were for the best?
No.
Okay.
God, no.
Okay.
Like, they could have done it a lot better when they changed over to AOS, but they didn't.
Yeah, Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You know how Cadia had to get just blown up for it to send a good send-off? Imagine that, but it didn't blow off after everyone fought tooth and nail to defend Cadia. Imagine Cadia, just everyone collectively shit their pants and then died right after they had won, just because reasons. That was the end times that led to the Age of Sigmar.
Well, with that, with that phrasing, I can certainly understand the vitriol end times gave for people. I mean, the thing is, I wasn't super. I did like their choice in Broadview to destroy Cadia as a narrative choice for like the severity of that, and also to finally give Abaddon some kind of teeth, since he had lost so many times. But even then, necessarily the execution I didn't think was perfect. But that's me being mostly nitpicky about certain choices. Generally speaking, like I understand what you're, but I understand what you mean. Like if they had bungled it worse than even like a nitpicky asshole like me thought they kind of they didn't perfectly handle the destruction of Cadia. But if they had and they had bungled it, yeah, I think I get what you mean.
It's like, imagine Okay, let me give you an example that I'm sure you have no idea about because, again, you don't know much about Warhammer Fantasy. Imagine, say, okay, let's go with an actual fact because, okay, so the King of the Dwarves is written to be an absolute lad who has stated we are going to put the end to all grudges, all of them. We'll make peace, we'll put an end to war, and we'll get our blood money back. And then, after brutally beating just a literal prick, just a literal rat bastard to death, he
Literal
opened
rat,
up.
like Skaven, or
Yeah, Skaven.
okay.
He beat a major Skaven character to death by just baning him over his knee, I believe.
That seems to be a trend
After
in Warhammer writing. Like if he baned him over his knee, that was like Lehman. That was Lehman Russ's favorite move during the Horus Heresy because he used it against Magnus. He tried to use it against Horus. Like, what is it? What is with it, like Warhammer characters and like just breaking people's backs over their knees?
I don't think it was actually breaking him over his knee. I think he just it's a it was a matter of saying I think he just choked the rat to death and broke his neck.
Mm-hmm.
Or cut his head off or some fucking thing.
Was it Thorgrim killing Queek?
Yeah, I think Queek head taker.
Credit to BC in the chat for pointing that out.
Yeah, Queek head taker. And Thorgrim, after, going literally Super Saiyan, after acquiring one of the essence of the 8 winds of magic inside of him, which is, for Warhammer fans, imagine all the warp fuckery divided up into 8 pieces and then just focus on that. Yeah, divide. Because, oh god. Fucking Warhammer lore. Okay, let me just explain this bit because this is the pain.
All right. So is this gonna take a lot of time?
Just 1 minute of your time.
Okay.
Okay. There are portals to the warp in the north and south poles of the Warhammer world. And the warp essence that comes out of those portals is called the Winds of Magic. There are 8 Winds of Magic. In the end times, a lot of characters were acquiring, more or less going Super Saiyan as they gained those essence of one of the 8 winds. And Thorgrim acquired, I believe, the Wind of Metal, probably not. And he then went Super Saiyan, beat Queek Head Taker to death, and then when he was, after he just, did some anime bullshit, just did some anime stuff, which was awesome. He then went through.
Was it bullshit or was it awesome? Or was it bullshit awesome?
It was bullshit awesome. Okay. It's like it really did Thorgrim's character justice while also, showing off that by, giving someone else other than the Skaven a win. But then he went through a secret passage that he knew about, and then a Skaven teleported behind him, said, "Nothing's personnel, kid," and just stabbed him in the back. When he was superpowered, wearing armor that is designed magically to go, yeah, no, you can't stab him in the back. You cannot do that. Which, just ignored that and then just killed him, not because, hey, the rat assassin came behind him and, sneaked behind him. No, it's because he forgot to lock the door behind the fucking secret entrance behind him. And then they just killed Thorgrim.
Huh. That's
Now imagine that.
bullshit and kind of
Yo, yeah.
anticlimactic.
Yeah. And now imagine that just throughout the entirety of fucking the end times. Just throughout the end times. A character does a badass thing, then they die anticlimactically. A guy is doing a badass thing, then more fucking Skaven kill them. A guy is doing a badass thing that could save the universe, and then some guy decided to go, lol, I'm the bad guy now, and stab him in the back. Which,
okay. Yeah, I could definitely understand why a lot of people were pissed by end times then if it was just that constantly.
oh yeah. Oh god. And then,
But that's what you get with rushed writing, because like one implication I've always gotten about end times from whenever I hear people talk about it is how rushed it was. Like they're trying to quickly wrap up the entire setting. This is not an excuse, by the way. But I'm just saying, like they were trying to wrap up an entire setting with gigantic sprawling lore, and like wasn't the end times only like a couple of books, if not a book?
I think it was 3 plus a few rule books, and it was all within like 2 or 1 year.
Okay, that's still very, very rushed for such a
There.
sprawling setting. So that's probably why it was the way it was. Because the thing is, when you sit down in your writing team, and again, this is not an excuse, but I'm just kind of like explaining how it, like the reason for the quality of end times comes. This is what happens when you rush writing. Whether it's from a bad writer, a talented writer, you're always going to get, regardless of the quality of the writer themselves, you will always get awful, shitty, and ungratifying writing if you go, all right, I need this in this short span of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to get dog shit. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
As the new Battletech fan, just ask an old Battletech fan about the Jihad era. That was worse, let me tell you.
Alright, well, I'm not going to go that far off the reservation. Alright, so I got another caller waiting. So I just wanted to... So you're positive about Warhammer Old World coming back. You've seen the new models. What do you think of the... What do you think of the new models? And also, this is just popped in my head. It was the last thing I was trying to mention earlier with like the information I caught about Old World. There's going to be a mix of resin and plastic models with Old World, and the resin is not going to be fine cast though. Like they did announce that, and a lot of people cheered. I would have. I did. Yeah. So, what do you think about them bringing the old line models back, but also updating some new ones? Like, are you excited for that, or are you hoping they stick closer to like older designs? What's your general view of like the models?
Honestly, some of the old stuff had charm. The new stuff, if they, do it better, it does it better.
Okay. That's a fair view, especially as we've only got 2 examples of the new models, with the Tomb King model and the Bretonnian model. Which I think he was a Knight Commander? I'd have to actually look at the title of that one again. But we only got those 2 as samples for the models going forward. I'm personally excited about it. I'm just curious about the whole base size issue, but I don't know. We have no information about that right
now. Warhammer Fantasy was definitely rank and file. A lot of the old models having squares was
so they could move in. Well, yeah, it was so they could move in
formation.
Yeah, formation movements, which I'd be curious to actually try out. And since Warhammer Fantasy ended before I got a chance to, actually, I think it ended well before I was even in the hobby, because I joined the hobby space during the end, like the very end or very beginning of 6th edition 40k or beginning of 7th edition 40k. Like that's when I got into the space. So by the time I joined, at the very least, by the time I learned about Warhammer Fantasy, about 2017, 2018, it had already been dead or just died. They had been
Yeah,
dead.
it
So I
happens.
don't know exactly when the end times occurred. I just remember one of the first things I heard about Warhammer Fantasy was how terribly it got done dirty.
Yeah, it got done dirty bad, but I don't know. I prefer Warhammer Age of Sigmar over Warhammer 40K, to be honest.
Yeah. I thank you for giving me your perspective, man. I appreciate it. I do got to bring in the next caller though, so we'll
Yep.
send you off. But thanks again, man. Thank you.
Welcome. See you around.
All right, Afiel, how you doing?
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So, what do you think of Warhammer Old World and its announcement?
It can only be better. I played like High Elves when I started High Elves in 4th or 5th edition of Warhammer. And to be honest, what my predecessor said, the end times, some of the parts in the end times were either the most dumbest awesome shit or the most awesome dumbest shit.
Well, I've mostly heard examples of how it was dog shit. Out of curiosity.
Yes, sometimes it was like super mega anime. It was something like Son Goku goes super ultra instinct, whatever the fuck, and then he got headshot from behind by 360 no scope.
So its highs came immediately with its lows. So were they all really just like that Thorgrim example he gave?
To be like, I give you a super quick high elven thing. Tyrion gets mad, draws the sword of Cain, gets super mad, bangs Morathi because she thinks he's an Aryan reincarnated and she has daddy issues with her ex-husband. Malekith becomes the Eternity King because the Phoenix God said, yeah, he should be the Phoenix King all along. Then Tyrion fights against Malekith. Imrik swoops in, breaks open the armor from Tyrion, and then Alithana shoots him. And after that, the curse of Cain is broken, and Teclis destroys Middenheim and the flame of Ulrich to resurrect Tyrion.
I have a headache.
Yes.
Okay.
And to be honest, Games Workshop got no money from me for fantasy again because they said, "Oh, you can play your armies in Age of Sigmar," and then but you can't play Order Draconis. That's like my Caledonian army, and you can play this and that, and then it's like, but you still have Shadow Warriors, and I have not a single Shadow Warriors ever played in Warhammer Fantasy because I have an army based on Imrik and Caledor. And when people say you can play, what was it, the Luminous whatever lords? Okay, I want an elf that has a helmet that is so big and so oversized that it would actually break his neck the first time he puts the helmet on. Yeah, to be honest, it can only be better because so sometimes fantasy was overblown as fuck, and the end times was the most overblown, quickened, and most ever rushed stuff they ever made. But to be honest, fantasy was in so many areas fun when you had stuff like, what was the part about when the Storm of Chaos campaign went and the Storm of Chaos campaign ended in Grimcourt Ironhide kicked Archaon in the nuts because orcs were dominating the entire campaign.
Kicked him in
And
the
that's what the
nuts.
most awesome orcish ending that you can ever write for someone. The what is it? The thrice-eyed king, the whatever marshal of chaos, and then Grimcourt just gives him a nut kick that you could hear the crack on the entire planet of Warhammer. And yeah, to be honest, Warhammer Fantasy was more fun than sometimes than Age of Sigmar, but the problem with Warhammer Fantasy is it was overblown. The rules were it was just a part of declaring a charge and getting your regiment-sized base into the enemy formation. It was like swing a little bit left, swing a little bit right, make it a 360 turn, dance a little bit. It was just too much in the rules and like overblown rules department.
Okay. So,
that was
do you think with the old worlds, because as it is in terms of like the rules or like the actual set codex equivalents or anything like that, we don't have those out yet. And in fact, from what I've picked up from like information, they're planning on like making like models and stuff before they put out like the books for Old World. But they say like the models are gonna be like compatible with like 8th edition fantasy.
Mhm.
So, do you think that with like the new rules, or at the very least the new edition of fantasy, which is effectively what Old World's going to be, first edition Warhammer: The Old World is going to be effectively the next edition of Warhammer Fantasy if they had kept going. At least that's my, not lore wise, but in terms of like the rule sets wise.
I mean, it would be nice rules wise if they just make like the like the old rules, but they a little bit make it a little trim here and a little haircut over here. To be honest, it would be totally okay and enough. And what is it? They said something. It's like the law of the old world is like was 250 years before end times, or something like that. And that's like the times of the three emperors. It was before the Great War Against Chaos, when Teclis came and teach the humans how to use magic.
Yeah, I have heard it is before
Before the first War Against Chaos in the
that
Empire,
much
before
I have heard.
Magnus the Pious. That's a Magnus that did nothing wrong for once.
Well, it actually did nothing wrong.
Yeah, this Magnus did nothing wrong.
Not the straw man did nothing wrong. Like actually did nothing wrong. Okay.
To be honest, when I checked some like old school online platforms where people are like talking about it, forums and stuff like that, and the funniest part is where people like, how can you say you can play Tyrion, Teclis, and Imric and these people in the new edition because it's 250 years ago? And I said, yeah, and that's like almost before the time where the Great War Against Chaos, where that were the time when Tyrion and Teclis were first in the spotlight, dealing with Malekith and an entire Dark Elf army.
Right, but they are alive during this time.
They are youngsters, but Tyrion, that was like the first big battle where Teclis owned Malekith super hard, and Tyrion just killed one of the best, most overpowered Dark Elf assassin duelist sword fighters ever. And then just started slaughtering in a little bit like in Total War, if you equip him super hard and then let him rip in a Dark Elf regiment. And so yeah, it looked exactly like that in the book. He just rode in and left and right body parts or entire Dark Elves were flying through the air.
I actually have a metal Teclis here. I showed him at the beginning of the stream. I don't know if you were here. This is like one of my oldest minis I own. I don't know if you guys can see it very well. For that blue fade you guys are seeing, that's because I stripped him. I got him second.
I got that one too.
Yeah. This is like the old school Teclis.
I need to find. I guess I have 3 or 4 different Teclises.
Teclis.
Teclises. Yeah, I have 3 or 4 different Teclis.
I got 4, 6 of them.
And they're all metal, and that's the. To be honest, I'm glad when it's not metal and not fine cast.
I mean, I haven't. This will be the first metal mini I paint when I finally get around to like painting him. But
to be honest, you can be so glad. Just if you have some time, check the old Dark Elf Metal Hydra. Look at the necks of that thing, and then you know why people despaired about that miniature. Because you had
seam
to
lines or
Dark Elf Metal Hydra Warhammer.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to be happy they're moving, because they've already said that they are making new models for plastic, but for those that they aren't, they are updating the lines for fantasy, and what they're planning on updating, it'll either be plastic or it will be resin. But the resin.
Send you the picture. That's the old Dark Elf Metal Hydra, and every one of the heads was separated.
Okay. It's kind of a small image. Hold on. That would be a bitch to glue. So especially
Yeah,
if they
you
were
had
metal.
to like drill and use metal sticks and stuff.
Yeah, because like that's kind of a dick move on the designer's part. Because yeah, for those who can't see it, can I share this?
I
It
mean,
has a
like
bunch of heads, but they're not like all in like a similar structure. They're all like stretched around in different angles. So to glue that on, you'd either have to have the steadiest hand in the world holding them together with the body that they're connecting to, or yeah, you'd have to drill holes in them and stick them on there to help them support as the glue dried.
Yeah, and I sent you another picture. That's the Hydra that followed the first one. It wasn't better.
No, that actually looks. It looks like they tried to make it better by having all the heads now coming from the top, but there's still the curve.
The issue was the heads were too heavy.
Yeah, well, they're metal. That's the problem.
Yeah, the heads were too big for the tiny little deck. And then when a friend of mine who played Dark Elves, when he saw that a plastic Hydra was released, he was like crying and or had it like started to pant in such a way that he almost had like a I'm in a good mood panic attack.
A good mood panic attack.
Because he was so overexcited that he never have to use the metal Hydra again, because every time he moved that thing, 3 heads went off. And they only regroup when he glued it.
Okay.
Yeah. To be honest, it can only be better if it's a good resin or plastic.
It should be good resin. They said it's not fine cast, which I hope they don't just mean like, hey, we're not calling it fine cast. I hope they actually mean like we're totally ditching the because I think the way the fine cast works is, at least I believe this is the case, is that they do it the same with the plastic, which is injection molding. I don't know exactly how you do that with resin, because to solidify resin, it's not like you just let it cool like plastic. You have to blast it with UV rays to solidify it. So I have no idea how that process works, but in a similar process to how they do plastic molds, they attempt to do the same with resin. It's injection molding, but that doesn't really work with resin very well, because I've had several resin models, and most, if not all of them, have come with warped components. Some so warped, like, I don't care like how long you hold a blow dryer to it and cool it in water there's no way to reshape it. You basically have to resculpt it if you want.
Don't forget the Forge World bubbles. When you have like,
oh yeah,
you get a Mark II Land Raider and you have like one, like almost a little thing, like a big hole in one of the armor pieces on the side. It's like,
yeah. I was I say recently, it was I think it was a month ago now, but I was commissioned to do a painting mini of the Night Haunter, Conrad Kurz. And when I was cleaning the mold lines and stuff off of his resin model, before I'd even gotten into the painting process, I found a resin bubble. Thankfully, it was nowhere on him or the detail components. I found it on the bottom of the decorative base. So I was like, okay, thank God. But
to be honest, Forge World does a way better job than Games Workshop in so many times. When I got a Sanguinius for my girlfriend and there was a weapon missing, and I wrote to Forge World, and the reaction was, here, have another Sanguinius.
They have a whole nother Sanguinius.
Yep.
Yeah, I just got the one. I should have lied. I should have been like,
hey,
I have I don't know, a part of his arm missing. Can I get a new one? I don't
know. To be honest, and when I saw the new miniatures, because of Old World, I was just happy because it looks new-ish, but it looks like something from Betonia, the Paladin, and it looks a little bit like a normal Knight of the Realm and a little bit of a Questing Knight. So it was a little mash-up, because Questing Knights, the old miniatures, had like this funny stuff on their backpacks. They had like an entire cupboard on the back and a two-handed sword. And yeah, friends of mine are like foaming about new Tomb King stuff.
Oh yeah, and we know pretty much for a fact that again there was some confusion with like the questions about like the starter box, like because they were told like no, we're not getting you're not getting one, but then they were like the Indominus box for 40K, but then there was clarification there is going to be a starter box. It's just going to be different. Like I don't know what that means, but I land on the side that they're not releasing Old World without some kind of major box set that they want to sell. So that there's no realm where that doesn't happen. So in whatever form we get it in, there will be an Old World box.
I'm totally fine when they just say, here you have the plastic Dragon Princess of Kalidor as a box again. Thank you. Aww. Because I made some Dragon Princess of Kalidor like as a kit bash, so I got from one homepage, I got the old Chaos horses, but only the one with the skull head and the bone parts. Then I had some helmets from Night Lords. I clipped off the wings and made it onto the head of the horse. And then from the Etsy homepage, I had a guy that made 3D printed elven heads with wings on its head. And then I had some bits left from the other one. And then I used the dark elf cold one riders and repurposed some old bits and stuff like that. And it's like, so, and that, or I can just buy a box of Dragon Princes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad. That was actually going to be my next question. Is how you felt about the models, but I think we pretty much answered that. Is you're excited for the new models that we're getting, and you know, I'm right now assuming that the resin models we're going to get are going to be modernly 3D printed with like an actual 3D printer, as you know, I own or a lot of people recreationally own. They probably have like an industrial sized one, I would assume.
I hope so.
I would certainly hope so.
They have one. They have one because there are some. I guess you can find it on Google. But when I was last time in my local GW store, and one of the store clerks said, "You look at this picture in the White Dwarf," and I said, "No, why? They made a resin print and forgot to make the little like lines when you print it and stuff."
Yeah, we know we know they have a 3D printer like that in the offices for like. Because they've shown off like new models and stuff with those lines very obviously there, so yeah, we've known they've had one, but the question is like, do they actually have a proper industrial one for wide shipping? Because I've always presumed they had like the ones I have, like an Anycubic Mono X, but they just had it in like the painter's office for like when they just want to do like a display piece for like the advertisements.
They have one,
but
you know what's the problem?
What?
What was the part called in? I'm not big in with Adeptus Mechanicus. The area on Mars where the Emperor said, "Don't go there because tech bad." The something labyrinth. Noctis Labyrinth, was it that one?
I'm not.
I think so. And in the GW like headquarter in the manufacturing part, the big 3D printer, the good one for the resin stuff, is in the area where the Noctis Labyrinth is. And everyone from the head department is, "Don't go there. 3D printing is bad. Stay with plastic infused like blow torches and stuff."
I don't know about Labyrinth. I do know there was a place on Mars that they were forbidden to go because it's where the dragon
the Noctis Labyrinth. That was where the Emperor said, "Don't go there. The tech heresy over there." And sometimes the way GW behaves with 3D printing and stuff, it seems like it's, "Oh no, 3D printing is tech heresy. We can't do that."
No, that's what they tell the players, though. I have no doubt in my mind that they're perfectly willing to, you know, say that to the public, like, "Hey, don't do 3D printing bad." But then in their own offices, they got like 40 of them.
Yeah, like the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yeah, I
don't do the toaster. The toaster is heresy, but when you don't look, they do the toaster.
Yep. All right, so yeah, I'm happy to hear that you're excited for it. Closing Straw is excited for it. Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, didn't they show something about Kislev a long time ago? Some like concept art for the Kislev army or something?
I didn't see anything about Kislev. But outside of Total War, of course. But
no, actually, I thought there was something about the old world and like designs for Kislev and stuff like that. But to be honest, after Total War hit like a truck, they were like, maybe there is some money over there.
Kislev. How about I
The
specify?
old world ice god of Kislev. Wait a second. It's this one.
I just pulled it up myself.
They showed some old like old really old Wing 2 SARs and stuff, and then they made like concept art and weapons for the new Kislev army.
I don't know. I totally missed this news. So okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that is something else to mention. Is like from the showcase they had. And again, this is what kind of adds to my belief they, in the grand scheme of things, at the very least, rushed it because they're still in the sketch stage. If this was like a startup or a what do you call it? Not crowdfunding. If this,
Let's see if it sticks.
yeah, if this was like a pitch thing, I could see them just showing off sketches and stuff. But the way they presented it at Warhammer Fest was very much, this is like the thing, kind of like Horus Heresy was kind of showcased. Although Horus Heresy was showcased in a much more, you knew they worked on this shit in the background. You know, they had an fully animated trailer ready to go. They had a bunch of models to show off. They had the box set ready to show. With this, and with Old World, it feels very much almost like an indie company showing something off, because it's a lot of conceptualization. They have some finished things to show you, like, hey, like this is what we're capable of finishing, like with the Tomb King model and the.
And there was a post a little while ago where they showed Bretonnian helms, swords. I sent you the link, and that almost looked like some, I don't know, STL file almost. The way it was it was looking, it looked like something I could order on some homepage for STL prints and stuff.
Oh yeah, and those definitely are the 3D models that they're going to print from. Whether, I don't think we're going to get access to those. I don't think they're going to be selling STLs, but those images are definitely not printed minis. If they are, that's the cleanest resin print I've ever seen. No, those are definitely just the models that they'd be printing from. They look good though.
And as an ending for everything, you know the best part about all of that stuff?
What?
When like the time goes on in the old world and we come closer to the area of the end times, we don't suffer the end times again. And you know what happens when we're closer to the end times?
Just say, nah, it didn't happen.
No, Godric and Felix happens.
I'm not familiar, so you're gonna have to explain it to me.
Godric and Felix is like the most awesome like duo in Warhammer.
I know that they're a dwarf and a human.
Felix Jäger is a poet and a little bit of a fencer, and he and Godric are like the super dynamic duo, and they're just so awesome. The books and the audiobooks. There was like one passage in a book where Godric was like slaying, I don't know what it was, a beastman or orcs, and they were just flying in bits and pieces in every direction. And Felix just said, Godric going on a rampage is like nature taking its course.
I like that. That's a very poetic way to put that.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Godric is a slayer and searches his doom and never finds it because he's too good. And Felix goes with him and writes his doom, and it's like, okay, yeah, let's kill this and that and that. And they have some of the most awesomely bad, super evil, nasty villains that you can ever find. So if you get the chance, get the Godric and Felix audiobooks and just enjoy it. It's just
there's audiobooks.
Yes, or the books, whatever you prefer.
I'll definitely give them a look. Well, I'll try to.
When you're done with Godric and Felix, and then you can come to Age of Sigmar, and you have only Godric without Felix, it's just something is missing.
That feels like a weird choice. You like, how many books of Godric and Felix are there?
Ooh, yes.
I take from that there's a lot. So you have a very significant series
Yes.
side series
And-
set about these two characters, and then you absent
But
one
to be
of them
honest,
and
they
think
meet
that's
so
going to
many.
work.
They meet so many awesome characters, like really big characters in the lore. It's like in one book, I don't tell you which book, but they meet like a really, really mighty and overpowered high elf mage. That's like one of the mightiest mages that ever lived. Whoever that could be. And stuff like that. And they're like super awesome characters, and it's just so funny, the interaction of both of these twos. That's like they're like the literal like superhero duo, where one is like overpowered from the start, and Felix just gradually becomes better the more time goes on.
Huh.
And it's just a fun to read.
Yeah,
And you have so many awesome side characters. To be honest, like one of my favorite characters is called Malachi Makais, and that's like a Slayer mad scientist, and I miss him in Total War Warhammer. That's like, just imagine he's a crazy like machinist, inventor, and a slayer, and he invented stuff like the Goblin Hewer.
14 books. Wow.
The Goblin Hewer was a dwarven artillery piece that you can use in the Storm of Chaos campaign, and it was just a rapid firing cable and steam loaded spring machine that was a rapid fire axe throwing machine.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, and you don't get that one in Total War. Why ever the fuck?
That sucks.
And to be honest, I hope for some pieces that return from the old world, there's the Goblin Hewer was one thing, and Long Drong Slayer Pirates was a team of pirate slayers that had a shitload of guns.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving me your feedback, and I'm glad you're excited about the old world too. I mean, it's very good to
it's
see
not
the community
AOS.
so positive.
I send you the Slayer Pirates, just enjoy that one.
Those are cute models.
Their melee weapons are guns, and their ranged weapon are guns.
I mean, you got the butt. Why not?
I hope they don't screw it up.
I hope they don't either. I mean, they have plenty of time right now. I mean, don't get me wrong. Announcing at Warhammer Fest 2023 is getting people ravenous, but they really, if I'm right, and they did rush to announce this at the state that it's in, which again, with how much of it is still concept art that they're showing, that is something done usually by like an indie company when they're like showcasing an idea that they're kickstarting. That's kind of at what they're doing right now, which feels
That's
weird.
how Warframe started.
Yeah, true. But again, I was like, that's an indie company. When it comes to the tabletop scene, you don't get more AAA equivalent than GW. So I'd say that's the only thing that concerns me about Old World is just that implication of like how early on they are and how like a rushed announcement implies a rushed product that they're working on. I hope they don't rush. I hope they were just really excited to announce they're working on it. But that's like the only negative I can bring about it.
End Time was rushed, and the people hated it, and then when Age of Sigmar came out, and people hated it even more.
I mean, I've heard nothing but hatred for Age of Sigmar.
What was it? You need to check the rules for the first edition of Age of Sigmar and make an video about it. It's like this: when you do this and that, I don't know, take your boot up, throw it off the table, and yell at your enemy, and you get 3 command points or shit like that. It was the wackiest bullshit. It was like the Magic the Gathering edition with the Unhinged and Unglued edition.
Those weren't
where
just
you had, like,
joke rules?
No, that was, from what I remember, it was serious in the first edition of Age of Sigmar.
Okay.
It was a one like fun edition for Magic the Gathering back when a card had super haste, it attacks before you play it.
Huh?
So yeah. Now there was some like joke edition for Magic the Gathering where a card had the ability Super Haste. You can attack with the card before you play it.
Okay.
On that same level was the first edition of Age of Sigmar.
That's stupid.
Yes. And to be honest, you could make a video about stupid rules of Age of Sigmar.
Well, if I can find them online and I don't have to buy the rule book or the codex or codex equivalents for Age of Sigmar to do that, I might. That sounds like it could be funny. Maybe turn it into a drinking game. Like every time you come across a stupid as shit rule, take a drink. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate.
Nice having you.
Yeah, I appreciate having you on. It was good to get your take, and I do genuinely, especially since you actually got to play Fantasy from back in the day, and I'm sure a lot of the old Hammer fans are rearing to go on this one.
To be honest, it was a really like positive stream. I find in general, because I was listening while I was doing some sport, and it was normally when stuff like comes like 9th edition is shit. This and that and that and that, and normally it's not. From what I see, people actually like it.
Yeah, so far I've seen nothing but positive feedback. The only negative I can bring up is again just that the feeling it feels like they're rushing to announce this because they don't seem to have much more than 2 completed models and a logo and concept art, which feels like a Kickstarter project to me more than it feels like they're really into this. But that's the worst I could possibly say about it. Otherwise, it's just pure excitement from everybody around. I mean, I'm not overjoyed about it, but that's not due to any kind of negatives towards it. It's just I didn't play Fantasy back in the day, and I'm not a fan of Age of Sigmar now. And I can't say that I'll be playing this game. I'm gonna wait till it comes out and like I see people play it, see how the rules go before I like give any kind of take like that. I will say this: if it looks endearing enough and it looks like something enjoyable, I'll probably engage in it. Might collect an army, but I'm not like so rearing to go though. Like I'm definitely gonna like buy the box set when it comes out. Like I can't say that's gonna be me.
I found one of the Age of Sigmar first edition like release rules. It was for the Screaming Bell. When you roll a 13 on a D2, you win the game. On 2d6. When you roll 2d6, and when you roll a 13, you win the game.
When you roll a 13 on a 2d6, the highest you can roll on 2d6 is.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's so stupid.
The other one, High Elf, what was it? High Elf Dragon Prince.
Were they drunk when they were writing the rules? Like just dicking around?
The Dragon Prince got +2 on the attack, and you lose it when your opponent can make you laugh.
Yeah, to me it just sounds like they goofed off and made like a joke version of the rules and accidentally sent that one to print. Okay, well, thanks again for coming on, man. I got another caller in the wait, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep, see ya.
All right, Litany, welcome to the stream. How you doing?
Hey, Asmo. It's a pleasure to join you.
Yes, good to have you on. So, what do you think of Warhammer: The Old World?
I think it's a splendid idea. But I am gonna be forefront and say I'm gonna speak in this stream as a little, not just a little. I am extremely biased to Age of Sigmar these days, particularly in the development scene of the storyline, so to speak. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I dare to say it's not most people's cup of tea, but I personally enjoy it. But the world in itself, I am cautiously optimistic about it, if we're gonna keep it purely to fantasy right now. Because I fear that many people's favorite factions are simply just not gonna be in the game, or at least not immediately in the game.
It's possible. It's taking place 250 years before the end times. So
True, that's true, but the thing is, as they describe it, in many of the Warhammer articles so far that I've read at the very least, It's called the Old World for a reason. It's taking place in the Old World, which means no New World factions primarily, unless they are factions that have inhabited the Old World.
Right,
So
and I
Lizardman is a no-go.
yeah, and I
They-
took that
they-
to being like the newer factions added in, for example, Age of Sigmar. Like the Storm Eternals, I think that's what they're called.
Stormcast Eternals.
Yeah,
Yes.
Stormcast Eternals. Like they're not going to be in it. So are a handful of other factions that are in AOS.
Oh no! Of course not. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the factions of Warhammer Fantasy is not going to be there.
Okay.
Because, as I said, it's the title name of the game is the Old World, and the community articles I've read describe it as taking place in exactly that, the Old World.
Right.
Things like Lustria, where all the Lizardmen is in the New World, and they even in one article when they described first time talked about the Tomb Kings, they even said that we're not gonna explore much of Khemri because that's not part of the New World, Old World, so to speak.
Right.
So I fear that many of the factions people love in things like Cold War Warhammer are simply not going to be there. It's going to be more new stuff like Kislev, Cafe, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of took that as a given the timeline choice.
Yeah, of course. I'm just saying that there are several factions from the New World that I suspect is not going to be there.
Yeah, I'd say there's no disagreement there. So, yeah. Thank you for pointing it out, though. I mean, I guess we didn't voice it at this one, but I certainly figured that would be the case. Like, you're definitely not, at the very least, we're not going to get character models from the Warhammer Fantasy that everybody, like Grimgor, for example. I'm presuming he wasn't around 250 years prior to the end times in the Old World. I'm pretty sure he was a result of the Chaos Dwarves experimenting on orcs to create the Black Orcs.
Essentially, I'm not sure about his timeline.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. Again, like when it comes to the lore of Warhammer Fantasy, I know next to nothing. I know little tidbits here and there I picked up from playing Total War Warhammer and from talking to friends who played old Warhammer Fantasy. But mostly, like when we're talking about like old world bringing back fantasy, it's mostly talking about like the rule sets. I think everybody understands. At least I think so. Like I haven't seen anybody having that misunderstanding that like, oh, all the factions that were present in like the last edition of Warhammer Fantasy are going to be available for Old World. Like Old World is set further back in the timeline, therefore less of the newer factions are going to be available. I think a lot of people are going in with that understanding. At least I was.
Probably. The thing is, I associate with the Warhammer Age of Sigmar community as well. And I've seen, I don't know if you know of him, the Lore Master of Sotek.
Sotek, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, that's the Lizardman snake god, but the Lore Master of Sotek is a Warhammer Fantasy lore buff. Who, when he saw the new Age of Sigmar Lizardmen, or Seraphon models, he was like, oh, these are gonna look so great in the Old World game. And I'm like, buddy, I'm sorry to burst your bubble.
Master Sotek. I know I've seen his stuff in my Oh, that guy.
Yes, that guy.
I hate that guy. Okay.
You do? Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. My dislike or like of a creator shouldn't affect anybody else here.
No, I know. I'm just saying. Sorry to remind you.
Yeah, I don't like him. I'll leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that, indeed. Let's not cause drama up in here.
Yeah. Generally speaking.
But yeah.
Yeah. As far as I've seen, everybody like I would assume most people go in understanding that the newer quote unquote factions are not going to be present in Old World, but like the rule set of Warhammer Fantasy is going to be revived, similarly anyway, into Old World.
One can hope, but I think that I'm at least a tiny bit afraid of when it comes to fantasy. Is the risk that it's gonna end up like a Horus Heresy kind of deal, he's probably not gonna be, but the fear is there that the game is not gonna go. It's not gonna do too great because as of late, people are really gonna use Age of Sigmar, and the rules may be very stark contrast to what basically anyone these days are used to. So it might become a bit too much of a niche game, so to speak.
It's interesting you use Horus Heresy as an example, because I've seen nothing but positive outlook for the Horus Heresy tabletop game. Unless you mean the
true.
old edition, like the old version.
No, I mean the current one. From what I heard, they're not selling as well as they would have hoped to do.
Well, that's just simply saying it's not selling to the point where it's like equalizing to 40K. It's selling fairly well from what I've seen, though. Like I haven't seen,
of course, but
I haven't seen like a terrible sales for it. I mean, they updated it in Warhammer Fest, so at the very least, it's sold well enough that they're still investing in it.
Oh yeah, I agree. I'm just saying that compared to even Age of Sigmar, it's a bit more niche. Because from what I hear, Age of Sigmar is even selling better than the Horus Heresy.
I can't say that's accurate or not. I don't know. All I can say is I've never seen a tournament in my local shops for Age of AOS. There actually was one time. One guy showed up. And the recent Horus Heresy tournament that happened in my area, 45 people showed up, and there was only 10 people who could play. And all of them stayed to the end of the tournament, which was a full day affair, just to watch.
Yeah, I feel ya. But, I mean, I dare say that the local tournament should not really describe the nature of the whole community, so to speak.
True.
If you get what I mean.
But I'm just saying that also kind of reflects my experience seeing the stuff online. So my IRL experience and my online experience tell me AOS is barely liked or played. And Horus Heresy is doing extremely well. That's just based on my experience. I don't have the raw data in front of me.
No, I don't think either of us do. But in my experience as well, if we're going to talk experiences, which is completely valid, Age of Sigmar is usually popular where I'm from. The models are loved, the game is loved, the tournament scene is thriving. I was in a small scale tournament some years ago in one of the nearby cities where we played Age of Sigmar, and they were like, and this is a tiny housing, and there were hundreds of people playing Age of Sigmar there.
Wow.
Not everyone made it far enough. It was the kind of tournament where you're eliminated if you lose enough. But still, it was a weird setup. But there we were.
You definitely have a better AOS scene than we do around here. Nobody plays around here.
I feel yeah. I mean, I think personally, and this might be again my bias because I personally love the setting quite a bit right now. Not as much as fantasy. But more than 40k, and I know blasphemy. But the thing is about the Age of Sigmar is I kind of feel like if it had just been its independent game and not like a continuation of the end times, like an alternative timeline, so to speak, I don't think people will have too much of a problem with it as a modern day.
Oh no, I think they absolutely would. The thing is, it was whether it was going to be a different timeline, whether it was going, no matter what, the game itself replaced Warhammer Fantasy. So it didn't matter if it continued the same setting, didn't matter if it was a different setting, didn't matter if it kept the old factions, got new ones. The fact that it took the place of Warhammer Fantasy and the cost of it existing was Warhammer Fantasy's death. That absolutely. Like
that is what I mean, though. That's what I mean, though. It is the cost of fantasy that made the Age of Sigmar so hated, not necessarily by its own merits. Though the first edition was absolute garbage. It was atrocious to look at when it comes to rule sets.
What edition is AOS on? The thing is, I don't follow it at all, so I can't comment. But
we're currently on 3rd edition.
3rd edition.
Probably moving on was the 4th soon.
Okay.
Because we're basically having our own arcs of Omen coming up soon.
Yeah. But yeah, if that's what you're saying, then I agree. Like if it had just started as its own game and Warhammer Fantasy continued to be supported with new additions, even if they stopped supporting the models, like not necessarily supporting as in they stopped printing them, but stopped making new ones or they stopped designing new ones, they just kept printing the old ones and kept. If all they ever updated was the rules, I think a lot of people would be pissed by that, but would have still enjoyed Fantasy and could have also liked Age of Sigmar on its own. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. That is a what if to acknowledge, but the case, regardless, that we currently have under our belt is AOS did come at the cost of Fantasy, and that has forever marred its like for a lot of people.
It has, and I agree with that.
I'm neutral on the whole thing. Like again, like End Times sounds horrible. AOS replacing Fantasy definitely seems like a bad gesture to me. And I can see why a lot of people will never give it a shot. But I was not a player or fan of Fantasy. And I have never played nor been a fan of AOS. So I can't, I can't meet you on either end on that one. I'm just kind of I'm over here on 40k.
I know.
I love the Horus Heresy. I hate where 40k itself is going, both lore-wise and game-wise. Hopefully game-wise I'm wrong. But, I'm on my island.
You're on your island, yeah. And that's respectable it's respectable that neither of us started going here and telling it's absolutely this way when one way or another we are not completely, how do you say, enlightened in the one topic.
Yeah. So, I am happy to get your perspective as someone who likes AOS, though, in this podcast, because getting your take... this is actually a question that just came to mind. Do you worry that the opposite of what you think will happen could happen? Like, what is... I guess let's do this what if. What if, instead of the old world not getting hardly any support, but the opposite happens? What if a lot of the current people who begrudgingly play AOS flood to it and abandon AOS? What do you think will happen with the AOS game and community?
Good question, honestly. I don't think it would hurt it too much, because the people, in a little bit of a vein that we've already broached, it's kind of like, as you say, most of the people who played Fantasy back in the WoW days basically never touched Age of Sigmar.
Right.
So there's not the same level of loyalty to it, so to speak. So I think most people who enjoyed Fantasy might have picked up one model or two because they look cool. Otherwise, I don't think they ever touched it. So I don't think there's a risk of one or the other just disappearing,
Okay.
That's could happen, but that's just my personal suspicion.
Alright, fair enough.
And what else? So I think there's definitely a scene for both to thrive.
I think there is. And I do hope for both success. Like, I never hope that these things go down bad.
No, that would be just rude.
I, for example, though, even though I dislike how 10th edition 40k looks, I'm still not hoping it goes down bad. I'm just hoping GW give us a game mode other than objective controlling modes for tournaments. For Christ's sake, just give me a domination tournament, please.
Yeah, I miss those kind of games as well, I'm going to be honest. There's none of that in Age of Sigmar either. The whole Warhammer as a whole have just gone down the whole of, we got to have objectives, man.
Everything's around controlling objectives, and there's like no variety in the game mode. That's what I dislike most. And that's what... And 10th edition has quadrupled down on it so hard that now objective controlling is now a core stat as opposed to a trait. Yeah, so now everything has a number connected to it on how well it controls objectives. Like, this one has 7, this one has 8, this one has 9. Yay! And a lot of people are like, well, that's good for the game mode, though. Yeah, don't get me wrong. For those... But I don't like objective controlling modes. That's the thing I hate. I don't care that this is better for that game mode. I don't want that mode. Like, please.
I want to be able to kill shit and win that way.
I play orcs. We're terrible at objective control. To have my orcs sit still on an objective for a whole turn and get shot.
It feels wrong. It feels wrong.
Sucks. I hate it. Just have a tournament where it's just my army versus that guy's. Who fucking dies first? Let me bum rush. Anyway. So,
Yeah.
in terms of Warhammer the Old World, is there anything else you wanted to say about it?
What is it? Old World in specific, I think I've said my piece. I think it has a lot of potential, especially with the community that originally favored the old game and favored the old setting to boot. I think both games have a thriving future ahead of them, and I hope that everyone who enjoys the game can continue to enjoy the game.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
It was my joy. Take care.
Have a good one. We've had 3 pretty good guests so far. I have no one else in the waiting calls, so I'll share the link if anybody else has joined since who would like to give their 2 cents on the Old World announcement, how you feel about it. Please feel free to jump into waiting call room 1, 2, or 3, whichever one is available first for you. And yeah, if we're clear on calls though, actually let me take my headphones off while we wait for someone else to join. They're suffocating my ears. So yeah, we've gotten pretty good responses so far. I mean, the most negative view I've had for sure throughout this, as we've been talking about it, and from the get-go, is again just so far the announcement looked kind of rushed. It looks very much like the way it felt like it got handled was kind of like an indie project trying to announce like a Kickstarter. Like they have 2 complete models, but otherwise everything else is in the concept art stage or in the description stage. And they also, even in the Q&A, like a lot of things were answered with, "Oh, wait till we, put up a document showcasing like the base sizes and stuff like that." All that kind of comes off very much like an indie game would, like a small team that don't have everything ready, that can't possibly tackle every task all at once and have it ready for a specific announcement. Like that's how that feels for me so far. But that's like the worst I got in terms of negatives. Otherwise, just the idea of the Old World coming back and giving Warhammer Fantasy Classic fans, I say like WoW Classic, but similar idea, giving those old school fans who missed that and had it taken away and thrown in the garbage can now go back to it and be like, "Oh, awesome! I get to play." In like the regimented like formations, and I get to play it like how you would in old school fantasy. I get to enjoy it how it was and how I liked it, as opposed to having to play how Age of Sigmar plays, which I've been told plays a little bit more like a little bit or a lot like 40k does, to the point where all the Age of Sigmar bases even have like round bases and stuff. So yeah, I am happy to see so many people be positive for it, because like I said, even with the 10th edition 40k trailer and stuff like that, like I had plenty of negatives to say about it. I'm not super positive about 10th edition. Again, I'm not happy with so much of GW's focus continuing to be on the tournament scene with fucking objective control stuff. I hate that. I want them to give some goddamn variety. Can it not just be my army versus your army? Why do we got to play this capture the 17 flags on the board game? I don't know. Like, man, I think I'm alone on my island when I say that, because I almost hear nobody else make that same complaint. So maybe I am by myself on that. But point is, it is very good to see so many people be positive. And the thing is, I'm positive about this again. Again, when the only negative I can possibly point out is it just looks a little Kickstarter-y. That's a nitpick for sure. So it's definitely good to see them bringing it back. Tucker says, "For me, the Old World is going to compete with the fan-made rules from Warhammer Army's project team." Okay. Would you say that those can't coexist? Because I think those can coexist. Like, for someone who doesn't like how the old world rules might... Like, the first edition old rule... goddamn. The first edition old world rules... Sorry, I kept going hard, like, world. I think that if people don't like the first edition world rules and the rule sets, if they don't like them, they can just simply go and do like the fan project Warhammer Armies like setup and do their stuff as well. And the upside is I don't know too much about the Warhammer Armies project. I don't know if their team is like making models for it. If that's the case, then I could definitely see a competition. But if they're just making like rules and stuff for like armies and such, then I think the old world, if anything, it's a positive or a boon to their project, because now new models are going to be produced for Warhammer Fantasy armies. So people can take those from GW, and again, if they don't like the old world rules, they can play the Warhammer Armies rules. But again, I don't know too much about Warhammer Armies. If they're making models, then I can see where that would compete. Like, because people aren't going to get the Warhammer old world models... Or sorry, they're not going to get the Warhammer Armies fan project STLs or models and stuff, right? And also going to get the official stuff for GW. They're going to get one or the other. So I could see where those don't work together. But if it's just rule sets that the fan made rules are being done, then I can only see them coexisting. It'll just come down to, like, in your friend group, what do you want to play? Do you want to play a game of Old World, or do you want to play a game of Warhammer Fantasy? They're pretty good. So yeah, so if it's only rules, then I think it's fine. And I don't think you have to worry about that. If there were models, I could see them competing, but it's really just going to come down to, do you like the Old World rules? Then you play Old World. And even if you do, if you also like the Warhammer Armies project rules, it's just, okay, which one do we want to play today? And obviously, well, then of course, like, tournament-wise, there's probably going to be a lot more Warhammer Old World tournaments as opposed to Warhammer Armies project tournaments. Yeah, if it's just rules, I don't see them competing. It's just going to come down to which you prefer or which you're in the mood for. Yeah, I think they can coexist quite well. Or they could play the Kickstarter Project Hobgoblin. Wait, that's a thing. Kickstarter Hobgoblin. Mike Hutchinson's Hobgoblin? Oh, $51,932, $923. 812 backers, 14 days to go. Rank and file tabletop miniature war game. Okay. Oh, so it's just... okay, okay. For a second there, I thought it was just rules, because I was scrolling, I didn't see any minis. I was like, oh, okay, so this is just, like, rules? I was like, just rules made 51,000? Maybe I need to make a Kickstarter for Warglaive, like, right now. Damn. But, no, there's minis. Okay, there's minis. I literally just scrolled to the minis as I was looking. Go to the Corrupted. Okay. Oh, there's one mini. 78 millimeters tall? What? Wait, is this just like a collectible? Suggested keywords general. No, it's got keywords, so... How big is the game? This mini is of like a normal dude. And it's 78 millimeters. Oh, that's tall. Okay. So, okay, looking at it, the base is probably like half that. So, okay, never mind. I was freaking out for a second there. I was like, that is big. Okay, no. That's not like the size of the base. That's like the height of the mini from the base of the mini, I'm assuming, to the top of his crown. And the base looks like it's half that or less. So, the base is probably around 40 millimeters. Okay. So having scrolled through, it looks pretty cool. There's no other miniatures shown, so that could be interesting. Looks nice, boss. I mean, it looks interesting, that's for sure. Yeah. I still might put up. I have been debating it for a while now. Cause the thing is, it's not the, you know, if I do put it up on Kickstarter though, I don't know if I should take down the Patreon or leave the Patreon up and also have a Kickstarter for Warglaive at the same time. Just to give people options. Like, do you want to support monthly or do you just want to make like one down like pledge payment? Like, give people the option. But at the same time, I might feel bad to do that now. I don't know. I'd have to pitch it by my patrons if they had a problem with it. Because if my patrons have a problem with it, I won't do it. Because they've been supporting the project for a while now, and I wouldn't want to do anything that would bother them or make them feel like their contribution wasn't enough. Alright, that's kind of a side thing, though. But that looks interesting for sure. People check out Mike's Hodgkin's Hobgoblin. That looks interesting. So it looks like I got no other callers, guys. So we're going to wrap up. We're gonna wrap up this stream. Real quick, I want to run an ad. You. Yes, you. Do you like tabletop war games?
How did you get in my house?
Answer the question.
Yes!
And do you like grimdark sci-fi universes with sprawling lore?
Yeah?
Brilliant! Then please consider supporting the development of such a game called Warglaive Gothic, a grimdark sci-fi universe with Viking werewolves, vampires, driders, and grape-happy cannibalistic gnolls, all in space! Link to the Patreon page down below.
Is this an ad?
Yes! Alright, I just want to run that. So yeah, please feel free to check out the Patreon if you want to support another tabletop war game and its production process. And I got, again, it's not without anything. The patrons got 3 STL sets up right now. 2 variations of the Gretsch Tomb Maker model, which is basically a giant worm. And also with that, there's also a set of decorative bases that are available right now. I call them geometric or industrial bases because I didn't have a specific design in mind for them. They're not super complicated to design, but they look neat. And I got a couple people who've already printed them, and they say they look pretty good. So yeah, those are up, and hopefully within the next couple weeks there will also be further character or creature models available soon with the Gretsch ghouls and the brutes. Those are going to be available as soon as I get them done. Then I'm also going to make sub-assembly versions of those. The STLs are coming aplenty for the Patreon in question, and all proceeds go to funding all the software I need to design the minis, and also to, also on top of that, any additional fees to keeping me alive so I can continue to work on them and hopefully get you guys. There's a comic underway as well for the universe of Warglaive Gothic, and there's a novel in the works. So those are the 3 major pillars I'm working on right now. You got lore, you got the lore front, which is, again, right now, mainly like a comic being worked on. And with the comic is also a proper novel. And then there's the STLs. So I'm working on it. Stuff's getting done. I'm on my own, so it's one guy working on everything. So keep in mind with that progress, keep that in mind with everything. But, yeah. Just wanted to share that. Please feel free to support. Link is in the description to the Patreon. Please check it out. And of course, any donations you guys might want to make on stream, this one or future ones, there will always be a link to the Streamlabs one, which helps get funds to me as soon as possible so I can afford all the software I need immediately. if you choose to do that as opposed to Patreon. I should have said that. My transitions. Otherwise, am I missing anything else I want to say? Oh yeah, Old World. Duh. Am I excited for it? I'm excited for other people for sure. I know so many of my friends who played Warhammer Fantasy back in the day that are going to be losing their minds. But as for me personally, I'm not excited, but I'm not panning it either. The reason I say that though is I'm not excited because of any negative reason. I don't think it's going to be bad based on anything that's been showcased or what has been showcased. It's solely I just don't have any investment in Warhammer Fantasy outside of the Total War games. So it would be an insult to the true Warhammer Fantasy fans for me to sit here and go I'm super excited for this and I can't wait for Warhammer Fantasy. In truth, I don't have so much investment into it. But at the same time, I'm also willing and open to Warhammer the Old World opening that door for me. If it ends up being that good. When we finally get the box set and the releases and everything are all set and towed, perhaps this will be a stepping stone towards me having an investment in the fantasy setting and the original setting, of Warhammer. But as of right now, I'm lukewarm is probably not the right word. I am neutral. I'm neutral on it. And I'm just happy to see so many other people excited for it. I'm happy to see so many people positive because we've had so many negative things to talk about in this space lately and in this hobby space. To have good things to talk about, to have things we can all just be positive about, it means the world. It means the world to finally have something like that to talk about. And for that alone, I greatly appreciate Warhammer Old World already. Because it's just so rare for me to see everybody so excited. So fingers crossed, it's worth the excitement, it's worth the thrill, and we're all rearing to go when it comes out. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. Thanks so much to the guests who came on today and got to voice their takes and their excitement. Also share some stories about Old World, both lore-wise and their personal experience-wise. Great appreciation to them. I always like hearing you guys' takes. That's why I have the Open Mic podcast. Because, yeah, you guys do get to hear my take, but more importantly, you get to voice your own. And I think that's the joy of why I get to do these. I'm sorry I don't do them more often. That's the only thing I'll apologize for right now. I wish I could do them more often, but being a indie dev myself with so many stuff to do on the back end, I hope you guys will forgive me for not doing these more often. But regardless, yeah, thanks so much for watching. Leave a like before you guys head out, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.